Welcome to the Marketing Finance Podcast. Today, on how to convince distributors abroad to sell your product. My name is Robert Plank. This webinar is recorded for all those brand owners and product manufacturers who would like to see their products sold around the world. And if you don't want to set up your own sales force, you need to work with distribution partners. But how to make these as enthusiastic for your product as you are. That's why we talk today with Alfred Griffioen, an expert on international market entry financials and founder of Exporteers, a network of market researchers in over 30 countries. Alfred has visited over 25 countries business-wise and also lived in Singapore for some years, but he is now with us from the Netherlands. Alfred, welcome.
Hi, Robert. Great to be here.
If you have a great product, how difficult can it be to convince a distributor?
Well, it may seem simple. If you have a great product, why wouldn't distributor not sell it? But distributors and also retail category managers are approached constantly with new products. So in supermarkets, for example, a category manager may oversee 1,000 to 3,000 products in the shelves that he manages. But there may be up to 30,000 alternatives available in the market. So category managers and buyers are already approached multiple times per day with producers asking them to consider a new product, their product, which is great, of course. But they know that only 1% of the new products that they put on the shelves survives more than a year. So that's actually a pretty limited portion. And the same applies in business to business. Salespeople don't want to overwhelm their clients with too many options. So they tend to offer products that they already know and that they know that are easy to sell, relatively low risk, and also familiar to them in terms of service and performance. And even if your product offers a higher margin to them, they may not want to risk the extra effort that they need to put in it. So typically you can say most distributors are not at all interested in your product features. Ultimately, distributors care only about one thing. How much effort does it take to sell this product? And what do I get in return?
Should you always work with a distributor or are there different options?
Well, not necessarily. Companies can choose between indirect export and direct export, depending on their product. I mostly work with 5 categories to define your offering in. So that can start with simple products like radios, drinking glasses, or peanut butter. And they often only require minor changes per country, such as labeling. A labeling may be translated in German or in French. The second category is digital services or software as a service solutions that can be delivered from your home country. And you need no local presence in the country mostly to sell it. But if you have more complex products, those that require installation, training, or integration, then you need local staff or consultants to get them across. Fourth category is custom-made products, and you typically need somebody locally to specify these so you can make them in your factory. And the last thing is custom-made solutions, like for example, a complete ERP system, but that often involves continuous dialogue and also on-site support. So that's more difficult to do that from abroad. And this also affects your distribution model. So you can, on the one hand, choose for indirect distribution. So that's through distributors, large retailers, or perhaps through web shops who buy your product and then resell it to the customer, which is ideal for products which you can more or less standardize. The other option, of course, is to work with direct distribution, selling directly from your company to the consumers, to the customers, through local offices that you may set up, country agents that represent you abroad, or through distance selling if that's possible, for example, in software as a service. A lot of companies combine both. They use distributors in smaller markets and local offices in larger markets.
So back to convincing a distributor, what do you need?
Well, many product manufacturers think that just showing their catalog or product brochure will already do the job. But you need quite a bit more than just showing the product. Because for a distributor, you must also clearly explain why have you chosen for this market? Why do you see the potential? Show your market research and also your competitive analysis. And if you talk about competitors, who are then these local competitors? You don't need to look only at the international ones, but also the local ones for your product. So you need to know a little bit of the market to see them and to understand what they are doing, and also to say, okay, this is the way I stand out with my product. The other question is, okay, if you see this competitive landscape, which product should yours replace? So shelf space is limited. And if you want to have your product on a supermarket shelf, something else must go. If you want a business to business company sell your product, then you won't offer something else. And then it's important to show what sales can you expect. So please provide also rotation data or sales data from other countries, which you can translate to this country. An important other aspect is also how will you handle logistics, delivery, returns, if something is wrong with a product or service, and how will you service the products that need it. And the last thing is what will you do in terms of marketing and communication? So many companies wrongly assume that distributors will just promote the brand and pay for that, but they won't. They will only promote you unless you support them heavily with that. So I can show you an example. We worked for a UK brand, or actually we made it a fictional tea brand that wanted to enter the German market. They wanted to be sold in the German supermarket. So they needed to, this is more or less than what you need to sell. So first of all, you need to have a sort of picture how the market is structured now and what niche there is in which you can position your product. Second thing is then also which products it should replace. And there we showed that with actual shelf pictures of German supermarkets. And we showed, okay, this is the section where you want to be. We made sales projections for them based on the current sales in other countries and then translated it to Germany. And the last thing is how to split marketing support and related costs. Who pays for it? Who does the packaging, translation, social media, advertisement, etc. So altogether, this is the level of concreteness that convinces a distributor to work with you instead of the 250 others that present them during the year.
So with this, you can negotiate a deal?
Well, almost. Even with a convincing pitch, like I showed above, then timing, of course, matters. Some distributors only add new products once or twice a year, and once they are interested, you should still negotiate about, for example, quantities and delivery terms. What would be your wholesale pricing? So the price that you sell your product to them, and what would be also be the payment conditions. And all this should be put in a distribution agreement in the right jurisdiction. And please note that if you work with agents instead of distributors, there is a lot of legislation protecting these agents. So be careful there how you formulate things. Then you have supermarkets. And there it's you have an additional hurdle, and that's listing fees or slotting fees. Category managers take the worst case scenario, the scenario that your product will hardly sell when it's on their shelves. If they replace now a product that currently sells, for example, 3 units per day with 40 cents margin per item, and that across 50 stores for 180 days, that equals around 10,000 euro in lost margin. So this is the fee they may ask you to pay to secure shelf space. So the question is, are you going to pay 10,000 euros to get your product on the shelf in so many supermarkets, already at a relatively low wholesale price, which they may negotiate, and in the meantime invest in local marketing? So if you want to go to a market, bring some budget.
Are there any alternatives to test the market?
Yes, luckily there are, and sometimes you just have to be a little bit creative. So if you can't convince a big distributor immediately, there are alternatives. For example, if you look at business to business or high value products, then, for example, you can supply your products first on consignment. So the distributor only has to pay these when he sells them, and that reduces his risks. You can also provide sales leads from, for example, from your own website or from a trade show and offer technical sales support. And especially in the beginning, that will be really useful for them. If you look at fast-moving consumer goods or other consumer products, then start with a few independent local shops. Just provide them free products or product displays or sample packs and collect data to see how quickly it sells. And that data you can use later on with the large retailers to convince them.
And how do you typically work with your customers, and in which countries are you active?
Okay, well, our approach consists typically of three phases. So we always start with local market research to get specific insights for your product and service. Where will it sell the best? What's the competition, etc. The second step would then be business case development. So we make a complete financial case that will show you whether the market can become profitable, but also you can pick out of it how low you can go with your wholesale price to still remain that profitability in the market. And the last step would be drafting a distributor presentation, like which I showed a few slides of before, and that contains all the elements to convince a distributor, a web shop, or for perhaps an agent to work with you. Well, these phases are priced separately because the costs vary country by country, and we work step by step. We are fully transparent about the pricing. You can actually find everything on our website. And in addition, we can also help you approach and convince distribution partners locally. So we are active in quite a bit of regions. You can see it here in the Americas, in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, Asia, and we even are active in Australia and New Zealand. So in each of these regions, we have local specialists, and they can conduct market research tailored to your specific product. Even for niche products where you wouldn't find any market report online or with any supplier. For example, if you provide detergents for the inside of chemical installations, we may still be able to make an estimate of the market. We work with quite a number of large companies as well with many smaller clients. And just if you want to know more, just feel free to go to our website or connect with me through LinkedIn.
Thank you very much for the interview. It was very insightful.
Well, thank you as well, and I really enjoyed it.